Alrighty, hello YouTube, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Cryptic Coil, and in today's video, I'm actually going to participate in a book tag from none other than my boy, Shadyside Library, aka Zach. Not Zach, aka Shadyside Library. Shadyside Library, aka Zach. Okay, because that's how it works. Now, because I do have to go to bed shortly, I am enjoying, an evening beverage, and I'm indulging a very bad habit out here. So, just being upfront, let's just address it, acknowledge it, get it out of the way, because I'm out here doing that. Because I got stuff to do before I go to bed. So, all right. So, Zach, or as I call him, Shadyside, wrote out 10 questions and tagged some people. I was one of them. And so I'm going to answer these 10 questions. I don't know if I don't think I'm going to tag anybody because I'm more of a consumer within this community. I'm not really like in the who's who or anything like that. So like I don't have that many close relationships. I mean, I'm friends with Zach and I'm friends with Elizabeth Sagewood, and that's it. Like there are some other people that I comment on. Sunnydale Reject. Okay, you know what? Sunnydale Reject, I'm gonna tag you, okay? Because you're my only other friend in this community. And I hope you're okay with me calling you a friend. All right, so let's jump into this. All right, this book tag. Okay, so question number one. If you could meet one author who's alive or dead, who would it be? All right, and that's a really tough question, man. And I wish I just had one answer, but like I have a few answers. One, you and I have the same answer in Christopher Pike. Okay, I love Christopher Pike. I've loved Christopher Pike since like before you were born, probably. I don't remember how old you are. I just remember you're significantly younger than me. Not significantly in the grand scheme of things, but I remember checking out some Christopher Pike books from the library when I was like 8 years old, and my parents ended up telling me I was too young to read him. That was like the year Kurt Cobain died. Yeah, so I mean, Christopher Pike would be one just because, like, he's got such a profound mind that he'd be great to have a conversation with. Okay, Anne Rice, again, she was really interesting, really intelligent. She was a very profound person as well. So Anne Rice would be fun. R.L. Stein would be really cool just because he's so productive. I mean, he's written so much, and he got this like great backhanded compliment from Stephen King himself, where Stephen King said, like, you take all the ideas and don't leave room for anyone else on the table, because R.L. Stein will grab an idea and run with it. And, that dude cranks books out. I mean, he doesn't stop, he's a machine. So those three come to mind. Question number two. What book have you always dreamed of owning? Okay, so actually, there's a book, and I believe it's still for sale on eBay, and I think it's going for north of $50,000, and it's Dracula, but it's autographed by Bela Lugosi. I really want that book. I've wanted it for years. I'm I highly doubt I'm ever going to be in a financial position to pull the trigger on that book. But if I win the lottery, that is going to be my first purchase. I swear. I'm going to buy a bunch of guitars too that are on my guitar bucket list, but that book, man, the Dracula's autographed by Bela Lugosi. Yeah. question number 3. Um, or Name one book that everyone should read before they die. My answer is probably going to surprise you guys, actually, because I know I look a certain way and I know I live a certain lifestyle and I don't seem the type. Let me take another drag and another sip. My answer is going to shock you probably. The Bible. All right, let me explain. I'm not religious anymore, but I was. I was devoutly religious for about 10 years. I mean, I was raised with it, but I didn't really find my own faith until I turned about 23. But let's go back in time even before I found my own faith. When I was a junior in high school, I took a history class, and my history teacher actually recommended that everybody read the Bible at some point in their life because he was older. I mean, he was at least in his late 50s, at the least. And he said, I'm not religious. I never have been. I'm probably never going to be religious. And he said, but my wife is. And he said, and the Bible has left such a mark on our society that it's a good idea to read the Bible just so you understand the references and the impact that it's made on our society and in our culture. And he said, once in a while, I'll watch a movie or a TV show, or I'll see something and I'll say to myself, I know that's a biblical reference, but I don't understand it. And so he would defer to his wife because his wife was religious. And she'd explain it to him, but he wished that he didn't have to ask somebody. He wished that he'd read the Bible for himself just so that he would know these things without having to ask somebody. With that being said, I've actually read the Bible a couple of times. And that's actually really benefited me even now that I no longer subscribe to the faith. And one of the reasons why it benefits me, let me preface this. Okay, so back when I was, a newborn believer, I started to volunteer with the church. I was actually a volunteer with the youth ministry. And I was having to shadow this older guy, and he'd been a Christian longer than me. He'd read the Bible before. I was barely reading the Bible for myself, and he told me, he said, you really need to read it for yourself because what you're gonna inevitably encounter is that you're gonna meet people who are gonna tell you that stuff's in the Bible that's not, and you're gonna meet people who will tell you that stuff's not in the Bible that is. And sure enough, the next day at work, we were talking about something work related, and it was something training related. And this one guy, he was my team lead. He said, it's like the Bible says, when if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, but if you teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. I was not even done with the four Gospels yet. I mean, I was almost done with the four Gospels, but I hadn't quite finished the four Gospels just yet. And I said, that's not in the Bible. That's an ancient Chinese proverb. The Bible was not written in China. And he said, nuh-uh. I remember when I was a kid, my mom used to read us stories from the Bible, and that was one of them that I remember from my childhood. And then I said, no, I'm telling you, that is not in the Bible. That's an ancient Chinese proverb. And I said, you're getting that ancient Chinese proverb conflated with this story from the four Gospels where Jesus told Peter and his brother Andrew, "Come with me and I'll teach you how to fish for men." Very similar, but not the same. And so I just think it's a good idea for people to read the Bible because now that I'm a non believer, I actually have friends who are still in the faith, and that's cool, and I respect that, and I'd never dare dream of taking that away from them ever. But because they're still in the faith, they have some thoughts and some ideas and some feelings about me and my departure from the faith. And I recently had one of them call me a sinner, and once in a while they'll call me out on something, and I know where they're coming from because they're still in the faith, and they'll tell me something like, "Oh, well, that's a sin," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, is it? Because I've read the Bible and I don't remember reading that part. Can you enlighten me? Can you tell me where it says that in your Bible?" And spoiler alert, they can't. Sometimes they'll give me some food for thought, and that's cool. I appreciate that, but you know I've read the Bible for myself. I'm not here to preach to anybody, but I do think it would behoove you because even though maybe Christianity isn't what it used to be in our society. I mean, it's still around, and I mean it still has its presence. So I'd highly recommend that everybody read the Bible before they die, especially if you live in the West. All right, moving on. Question number 4. Name something that you'd like to check off your list before the end of the year. Or there's a couple of things. So there's a Carmen Adams book that I've read called The Band. And I remember I first saw that book on Cameron Chaney's channel. I think he had it in one of his videos called My Rarest Young Adult Fiction Novels or something like that. And I really liked the cover. And I ended up looking for a copy on eBay, and there was one copy available for $300, which I was not going to pull the trigger on. And then I looked back a year later, and I found a mint condition copy for $25 or $30, something like that. And I was like, okay, that's a lot more reasonable. I'll pull the trigger on that. So I did. And then a month later, I found another copy that was really beat up, and it was only $11. So I bought that copy as well, and I used it as my reading copy, and I read it. And I still haven't uploaded my review of it. And I really want to because I have some thoughts about it. Nothing profound, but just some stuff that I find interesting. And so I've been wanting to do that video. That's something I'd like to check off my bucket list before the end of the year. Another thing that I'd like to check off my bucket list before the end of the year. So prior to uploading this video, I just uploaded in homage to Diane Ho because she just passed away recently. I'd like to read a Diane Ho point horror novel before the end of the year. So that's another one. All right, moving on. Question number 5. What series have you always wanted to read or complete reading? And that's kind of a loaded question too because there's a number of series. One is the Fear Street series in general. I read a handful of these when I was a kid, but I read them out of order. And ever since I started this channel, I've dreamed of reading the entire series in order. One sub-series of the Fear Street series that particularly interests me is the Fear Street Seniors series. I'd also like to read the entire Bailey School Kids series. The Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice. I've read Interview and I've read The Vampire Lestat, but I never read Queen of the Damned. I saw the movie, never read the book. So I mean, that's really hard. There's a few, the Vampire Chronicles, the Mayfair Witches, Fear Street, Bailey School Kids. I guess Horror High by Nicholas Adams, but that's just something that I've only wanted to read in recent years because I didn't know about it as a kid. Oh, and here's another one. I'm actually a big fan of James Patterson, his First to Die series. So, like, he has a number of these books. Like, book number 1 is called First to Die, book number 2 is called Second Chance, etc., etc., etc. I'd like to read this series. I've read the Alex Cross series up until I think it was Kill Alex Cross. I think that was the last one I read, maybe. But I haven't touched this First to Die series, and I'd really like to. All right, question number 6. What booktube video have you always wanted to make? So, I started this YouTube channel because Netflix offered the Fear Street trilogy movies. And that's what kind of prompted me to go out and start buying these books, and then that's what my channel became about. And I've always dreamed of finishing the Fear Street series. Even as a child, like when I had the chicken pox, I read a Halloween Party in 5th grade. I've always wanted to read the entire Fear Street series, but I never did. So I'd like to eventually finish it, and I'd eventually like to do a ranking or something like that, you know. Question number 7. What genre have you always wanted to read? So I'm primarily into horror, okay? I like horror. I also like autobiographies, like in addition to horror, historically I've always been into pro wrestling. Like I grew up a huge WWE fan. I haven't really watched it in like 15 years, but I was a pretty big fan up until like my mid-20s. And so I've read like Stone Cold's, Chyna's, Chris Jericho's. I've read their autobiographies, so I enjoy reading autobiographies. But a genre that I'd wish that I could read more of, I think it would be maybe philosophy and maybe even like philosophical fiction, because now that I'm not religious, I had to find something that would fill the void, because when something is that centric to your life, and for you to walk away from it, like there's a void is going to get left, and you have to fill that void with something. And for me, it was philosophy. And what philosophy is it's a Greek word, and it means the love of wisdom. And so that's something that philosophy isn't going to do you a whole lot of good in preparing to enter the afterlife, but philosophy will do you a whole lot of good in living out the rest of your life here on this earth. And so that's just something that I wish that I'd read more of. I mean, I've read Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, but I wish that I've read more of Nietzsche's work. I wish I've read other books by Ayn Rand. I wish that I'd read some stuff by Dostoevsky, etc. So that's a genre that I wish that I could stop and take time to read more of. All right, question number 8. And if you could receive an advanced reading copy of any upcoming book, what would it be? So I don't really keep up with like what's coming out in books or anything. Like I don't know if R.L. Stine has a new one coming out, or if Christopher Pike has a new one coming out. I don't really know about that stuff, but I know that James Patterson is one of my favorite authors, even though he doesn't write all of his books. I do enjoy most of his books. So the next James Patterson standalone novel, I guess that would have to be the answer to that question for me. All right, question number 9. If you could do a buddy read with anyone, alive or dead, who would it be, and what book would you guys read together? Actually, this is an interesting question because I've proposed the idea before, and it's my fault that it didn't happen. I flaked. My apologies for that, by the way. But Zach from Shady Side Library, he would be the person that I would want to do a buddy read with. And the book that we would buddy read together would be Salem's Lot. And look, I mean, I'm all for taking accountability. I proposed it, it never happened. Shame on me. Okay, but I mean, my 30s have been really crazy. Like, my career has devoured my personal life. Like, my career has chewed my personal life up and spit it out without any remorse. And that's one of the reasons why I haven't read as much in my 30s as I did in my 20s or my teens. And that's, I mean, you can call it an excuse, but I'm willing to accept accountability. Okay. One of the reasons why I haven't tried harder to take the time to read Salem's Lot is because I can't just read Salem's Lot. Okay, I need to reread Dracula because I haven't read Dracula since like freshman year in high school, and I only remember bits and pieces because the old timey language, was kind of difficult. I feel like this book was too advanced for me at the time when I read it. I just read it. I was interested in it, but I just read it to say that I've read it because I was goth and I was into vampires. And what kind of goth who's into vampires hasn't read Dracula? I wasn't ready for it yet. I wasn't on that level, which is really weird because when I was in 7th grade, I had a 10th grade reading level. Then when I got to 10th grade, I had a college reading level. And I still struggled with, I read Dracula in 9th grade, not 10th grade. I don't know what my reading level was in 9th grade. A year at that age makes a big difference. But I attempted to read the King James Version of the Bible, like, freshman year. Couldn't do it, couldn't understand it. But by the time I got to my mid-20s, loved the King James Version of the Bible, loved the old-fashioned language, found it soothing. But at the time, like when I read Dracula, and the language isn't quite as drastic in here as it is in, say, the King James Version of the Bible, but it was different for me at the age of like 15 when I was a freshman in high school. So I'd just be really curious to read this as an adult, and I'd like to read it before I read Salem's Lot. So Zach, Shady Side Library, if you're open to it, maybe I need to finish the book I'm on. I need to read that Diane Ho book that I need to read. And then when I'm done with that, I can tackle Dracula as an adult because I'm actually equipped to read Dracula now that I'm at my age. Let me kill this before the end of the year, and then maybe in early 2026, we can talk about buddy reading Salem's Lot together. Because you just recently uploaded a ranking of the Stephen King books that you read, and I don't remember Salem's Lot being on there. So something to think about, all right? No pressure. All right. Let's move on to the, is it the last question? Yes, the last question, question number 10. Name a book that you always wanted to read. A book that I've always wanted to read. I mean, there's so many. I mean, just look back at my channel. Like, how many books have I bought and showed off in book hauls that I haven't read yet? Let's see, in the Point Horrors series, there's one that I want to read, but it's pretty expensive, and there's not very many copies on eBay, and you can't find a copy for less than $40. And I have one, but it's in mint condition, and so I'm not going to read it unless I find a beat up copy that I can use as a reading copy. And it's by the author's name is like Mildred Ames, Anna to the Infinite Power. Okay, so in the Point Horror series, that's one that I'd love to read that I haven't read yet. Let's see, a Christopher Pike book that I haven't read yet that I want to. A Christopher Pike one would maybe be Bury Me Deep, because I started to read it, but I never finished it. And it wasn't a problem with the book, it was just, it was on me. And then an adult novel by Christopher Pike, I'm guessing The Cold One, and Blind Mirror. From Anne Rice, I guess it would be Queen of the Damned. Never read it, and I need to, because I've already read Interview, I've read The Vampire Lestat. I just need to read Queen of the Damned. Because eventually I'd love to read Nemok the Devil. Okay, that one sounds epic and dope. Stephen King's Salem's Lot, obviously. So I mean, there's just so many. It's really tough. That is a tough question. But I mean, these are good questions. They really challenged me. I mean, it gave me half an hour worth of content for a video. So, good job, Zach. Well done, Shady Side. All right. Well, I guess I answered all 10 questions. Guess I'm done. Sorry that this video took so long, but thank you guys for watching. I hope you had fun, because I had fun making it. So, horns up. Peace out. Hey, Zach, Shady Side, get back to me on that Salem's Lot proposal for 2026, all right? All right, horns up, peace out.